Discover the Sinister Curse, a spine-chilling tale of revenge by the haunted spirit of 17 souls. Sarah lived in Willow Creek, a place where the sun always seemed to shine, and the neighbors waved as they cut their lawns. Yet, when the shadows grew longer, a chill danced through the streets. As a single mother, she spent her days in a frenzy of cooking, cleaning, and chasing after her little boy, Ethan, with an ever-present weight on her shoulders. Nights bound her to the local diner, where she worked late shifts, pouring coffee and serving pie while the moon hung high. But as she scrubbed greasy plates, a gnawing apprehension whispered in her gut that it was a rainy evening when she decided to tackle the dusty attic, hoping to find Ethan's old toys buried in the cobwebbed corners. The air felt thick, oppressive, and every creak of the house felt like it echoed a warning. As she rummaged through boxes, her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic, an antique locket entwined in fabric. Holding it up, her heart dropped as memories of her grandmother flooded back. This wasn't just a trinket, it was a relic steeped in the ghostly lore of Willow Creek. A chill enveloped her, and she could almost hear the whisper of mournful cries curling through the corners of the room. It was said that a curse hovered over 17 souls, wronged by the corrupt of this very town, seeking to balance an ancient wrong. It's just an old story, she told herself, but a knot twisted in her stomach. Apprehensively, she tucked the locket into her pocket and descended the attic stairs, her instincts screaming for her to tread carefully. Days passed like a noose tightening around her as strange happenings erupted in their home. Ethan would wake in the night, eyes wide and frightened, talking to shadows only he could see. The walls seemed to breathe, murmurs echoing between the ancient wood, as if the house had a pulse. Sarah tried to rationalize it. Was it her mind playing tricks from the exhaustion of single parenting? But there was something about the silence in the air that felt off. One fateful night, panic gripped her when she discovered that Ethan was missing from his bed. The silence that followed was deafening. Heart pounding, she raced down the cluttered streets that had always felt safe, transformed now into a maze of terror. "Ethan!" she screamed, her voice cracking in desperation. Shadows seemed to dance deliberately, twisting around her ankles, keeping her from moving forward. Each door she knocked on revealed guarded eyes, excuses, and strange murmurs, leaving her feeling more isolated. With each unanswered door, her faith shattered. Were people she'd known for years now hiding sinister secrets? Desperation clawed at her throat as she turned to a woman from the book club whose smile now seemed a mask. The whispered name of the locket echoed in her mind, and she realized it tied her family to the tragic fate of those 17 souls. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The veil of safety had been torn, revealing a darkness that crept ever closer. "I will find you, Ethan," she vowed, retracing her steps to the locket that had awakened a curse. Just then, the clock struck midnight, and a chilling message threaded through the air: to save your son, you must embrace the curse. Standing on the precipice of dread, she realized the clock was not just ticking. It was a countdown to not only reclaim her child but to face the monstrous truths lying both in the spirit world and in her own neighborhood. In that moment, the horror closed in, leaving her breathless, and she couldn't help but wonder, could she shield her family from this haunting reckoning, or would she join the legions of souls who had cried for vengeance? The wind howled like a banshee, carrying whispers that slipped through the cracks of Sarah's mind. Each gust seemed to echo the warning that had spiraled into her thoughts. "Embrace the curse," it taunted, drumming a steady beat against her heart. With Ethan gone, shadows danced around her, taunting her with their chilling presence. With determination, Sarah dashed back into the house. The locket's weight in her pocket felt burdensome, its chill a reminder of the curse binding her family. She lunged for the attic stairs again, each creak beneath her feet sending shivers up her spine. What could the curse entail? Blood, sacrifice, secrets. Her mind raced with a myriad of possibilities, none of them good. The attic felt different. It hummed with something alive, almost electric. Dust motes floated uneasily in the dim light as she opened the box that had held the locket. There was something significant about it, a clue, perhaps. She pushed aside old clothes and forgotten memories until her fingers grazed another cool surface. A journal lay hidden beneath layers of time, its leather cover cracked and faded. She pulled it into the light, her breath hitching as she examined the front. The Chronicles of Willow Creek, the title read. With trembling hands, Sarah opened the fraying pages, the smell of musty paper filling her nostrils. Each entry chronicled the lives of the 17 souls, their laughter twisted into screams, their hopes shattered by betrayal. It told of an unholy pact forged in greed and vengeance, of spirits trapped between worlds, their cries echoing throughout the town. Suddenly, a hollow whisper broke the stillness, chilling Sarah to her core. "Awaken us," she gasped, the sound ricocheting off the walls, becoming part of the very air she breathed. The journal vibrated in her hands, its pages flickering like the flame of a dying candle. Stricken with fear, she slammed it shut, but the whispers grew louder, as if demanding her attention. "Stop it. I want to help you." She shouted into the empty attic, fists clenched at her sides. The shadows thickened, swirling menacingly, constricting her like a serpent, but amid the darkness, a flicker of light caught her eye. Beneath the floorboards, a cover lay slightly ajar. She knelt down, heart racing as she lifted it, revealing a narrow compartment. What lay inside sent ice through her veins. Bones dried, old, and tangled in a web of rusted chains were scattered like lost relics. Sarah's breath caught. She realized they belonged to the very souls she'd read about. "Embrace the curse," they whispered again, but this time it sounded urgent, desperate. Instinctively, she recoiled, but an unseen force pulled her closer to the truth buried beneath her. Visiting Ethan over and over again in her mind made her heart ache. Would she have to trade herself to save him? Grasping the locket, she felt its cold bite against her skin, the urge to wear it overwhelming. In that moment, she understood it wasn't just a choice between light and dark, it was a haunting promise that could bind or break her. Just then, the shadows ruptured, yanking her back into the darkness. A terrified gasp escaped her lips as she felt the air shift. Something had awakened. It was time for reckoning. The clock was still ticking louder, counting down to when she'd have to make her choice. "Sarah," a voice called, softer this time, yet heavy with sorrow. It sounded like Ethan. Every instinct screamed for her to run, to flee while she still could, but every thread of her heart tugged her toward the voice. "Find me," it urged, palms sweating. Sarah found herself teetering on the edge of despair and hope. What lay ahead, nightmares or salvation? With each heartbeat, dread coiled tighter around her. The quest had truly begun. But first, the locket. Would it be her savior or the final chain that bound her to a curse she couldn't escape? The journal felt alive in her hands, its pages fluttering as if eager to reveal their secrets. She fought against the chill that wrapped around her heart, forcing herself to focus. The whispers intensified, forming a chorus, each voice pleading, each note dripping with despair. "Set us free." Her knuckles whitened as she clutched the journal tighter. What if the curse had a way out? What if learning more could help her understand how to break it? Sarah shook her head violently, trying to dispel the fog of fear clouding her thoughts. Confronting the unknown filled her with dread, but the truth lay waiting. "Help us," the mournful cries echoed, curling into her ears. With a deep breath, she opened to the first entry. It detailed the founding of Willow Creek, a town built on greed and a dark pact with forces beyond comprehension. Here, betrayal and vengeance had woven a tapestry of madness, leading to the curse that bound its people in torment. Sarah's gaze darted up to the shadows. Was it just her imagination, or did they writhe in agitation, like something alive? She could feel their cold breath against her skin, urging her to hide, to flee, but her curiosity was a flame igniting slowly within her, pushing her to read on. Betrayed by one of their own, the 17 were bound to this earth, she read aloud, her voice trembling. Every year, they seek a soul to exchange, needing the sacrifice to avoid their eternal damnation. The words seared through her like barbed wire. A sacrifice that meant she was the next target. Panic surged through her, coursing like ice through her veins. Had Ethan been a previous victim in some way? Was she meant to be the next? A loud thump echoed from below, pulling her from the web of terrifying thoughts. The house groaned, and in that moment, the air shifted. A chill swept up the stairs, and the darkness thickened further, wrapping around her like a suffocating shroud. Heart racing, Sarah tucked the journal under her arm and darted toward the narrow compartment again, desperate to find answers among the remnants of lost souls, but something caught her eye. The locket glimmered, as if responding to the cries that filled the ambient air. It felt heavier now, a weight she couldn't ignore. The urge to clasp it around her neck became unbearable. What power lay within? As a voice called out her name once more, she hesitated, caught between desire and dread. The whispers grew swift, bouncing off the walls, spiraling into a chaotic melody of terror. Take it, embrace what waits, swallow the darkness with an icy resolve. Sarah yanked the locket from her pocket, clutching it tightly. Was this the key to revealing the truth or merely part of a greater deception? She felt drawn to it, hand trembling, the energy thrumming through her fingertips. In a desperate bid, she stared into the shadows, challenging whatever was out there. You want me? You think I'll submit? I won't give in. Suddenly, the walls trembled as if the very house were alive, groaning in protest. Shadows spilled forth, sprawling out across the floor to envelop her, filling the air with a rancid smell of decay. She staggered back, heart pounding. The whispers crescendoed to a crescendo of fury. You cannot escape the past. The choice must be made. Her breath caught, the room tilting dangerously. In that instant, Sarah felt the weight of every soul pressing down on her. Alongside her need to protect Ethan surged an overwhelming sense of dread. What if unraveling the curse meant condemning herself? Then, just as quickly, the voices quieted, leaving a profound silence in their wake. Sarah's heart raced painfully as the shadows retreated, revealing a path forward. All at once, a revelation crashed over her. One choice could change everything. Find me, Ethan's voice echoed again, tinged with urgency, urging her to act now, before it was too late. With a shaky breath, Sarah knew she had to decide. Would she confront the curse, risking everything for her love, or would she retreat into darkness, leaving the souls bound for eternity? The shadows seemed to laugh at her hesitation, a chilling mockery echoing from the corners of the attic. The hourglass is running out, Sarah chose wisely. Her mind raced with turbulent thoughts, caught in a tempest of despair. But one final echo rang through the silence, a beat of the clock. Time was not on her side, and soon, she would have to face the sinister truth about the curse binding them all. What lay deeper within the darkness, waiting to be unveiled? Sarah stood frozen, her heart thrumming wildly as the world around her dissolved into shadows. The air felt heavier still, as if the house itself was holding its breath, waiting for what, she couldn't gauge. The journal's pages lay exposed, trembling slightly as though urging her to delve deeper, but she couldn't shake the oppressive weight of time edging closer. Find me, Ethan's voice lingered, insistent, weaving through her mind. She squeezed the locket in her palm harder, feeling its sharp edges dig into her skin, reminding her of the stakes at hand. What if she turned back? The warmth of the sun outside beckoned, a sweet escape. But the thought of turning her back on Ethan sent a wave of nausea rolling through her. She couldn't abandon him. He needed her. Shoving thoughts of retreat aside, Sarah opened the journal again, the musty smell wafting up a scent of decay mingling with desperation. The next entry was dated just days after Ethan's disappearance. Her breath hitched. The familiar handwriting sent shivers racing down her spine. The ancestors weep, it read. Bound in sorrow, forever seeking vengeance against those who wronged them. Chills crept across her arms as she continued. They grow stronger as the anniversary of the betrayal approaches. One soul is needed to fuel their ire. A slow realization dawned. It wasn't just a town cursed by betrayal, it was a perpetual hunt for souls to appease the 17 restless spirits. Panic threatened to swallow her. If she didn't figure this out soon, Ethan would be next. A rustle broke the stillness. The attic shifted, shadows start to intertwine, thickening around her, pressing in, vibrating with an unseen malevolence. Choose. The voices hissed, a maw of despair weaving a chorus of lies, echoing fears, and choking nightmares. Stop! Sarah shouted, her voice rising above the cacophony. She couldn't let fear drown her. Her eyes darted toward the remnants filling the attic. It held history, stories of loss and revenge, but also the key to saving him. Diverting her gaze back to the journal, a flicker of the locket caught her eye. As she lifted it closer, it seemed to pulse in rhythm with her own heartbeat. Desperation clawed at her. What if it held the power to communicate with the trapped souls? With trembling hands, Sarah clasped the locket around her neck. Her skin prickled as cool metal settled against her chest. The second she fastened it, a flood of cold energy surged through her limbs, resonating with the voices screaming for freedom. Sarah, it wasn't just a whisper now, it was a tangible pull, stronger, clearer. Her heart raced as she was drawn toward the open window at the far side of the attic, moonlight spilling in like ghostly sheets of hope. Shadows shifted fluidly, swirling wildly, the air charged with a desperate longing. I can't, she gasped, I want to become part of this. Yet, the urgency heightened. She sensed a surge of energy beckoning her deeper into the heart of the cursed tale. Face the darkness. The voices howled, swirling shadows forming distant faces, their mouths twisting in silent screams. No. She forced herself to retreat, but the pull only intensified. Images clawed at her mind, twisted faces, nameless souls drowning in darkness, their eyes wide with horror. A flash of Ethan's face broke through the chaos, frightened, yet hopeful, calling to her. The shadows shifted again, coiling closer, the atmosphere rising thick with dread. Sarah, it's time. Her pulse thundered in her ears as clarity settled over her. She could either succumb to the fear, become another victim ensnared in the curse, or step boldly into the night, confronting whatever lay beyond the veil of darkness. She took a breath and steeled herself, fixed on the beacon of moonlight. Beyond was the unknown, but it also held the chance of salvation. As the ambient turmoil crescendoed, Sarah rushed toward the window. Just as she reached the threshold, the chill clutched at her throat, and a scream erupted from the shadows too wild, too terrifying to ignore. You cannot leave us. Her breath hitched, torn. Between stepping through or falling into the hands of those she sought to save, what awaited her beyond the glass? Would this act of defiance free Ethan or plunge them all into eternal darkness? Sarah stumbled through the window, the cool night air sweeping across her skin. For a fleeting moment, she felt weightless, free from the suffocating grip of the shadows behind her. But the freedom was short-lived. The moment her feet touched the ground, the darkness churned, roaring with fury. A cacophony of voices erupted, clawing at her, each more desperate than the last. How dare you abandon us? You're one of us now. Complete the sacrifice. They thundered against the veil of night, their anguish palpable. Sarah felt their breath on her neck, icy and sharp, like 1,000 needles pricking at her skin. She turned frantically, scanning the area around her. The old house loomed ominously behind, its windows like sinister, unblinking eyes. The forest beyond twisted into gnarled silhouettes, each tree standing guard to secrets long buried. Was she truly free? No, there was a new horror festering just out of sight. The locket around her neck pulsed again, dancing with energy tainted by desperation. Each heartbeat drummed loudly in her ears, merging with the cries of the restless spirits. What do you want from me? She shouted, but the question disappeared, swallowed by the chaos surrounding her. Bring him back. They shrieked, the darkness darkening further, wrapping her in its icy tendrils. Heart thundering, Sarah clutched the locket tighter. Ethan's face flashed in her mind, an echo of hope that had survived the suffocating dread. She had to summon the courage to confront the pain that was woven into this curse. "I'll find you, Ethan," she vowed, feeling the fire of determination ignite within her. As the chaos coalesced into a whirlpool of despair, she saw a flicker of light, soft and inviting. Out of instinct more than intention, she moved toward it, her feet pounding against the frosty ground. The figures behind her writhed in protest, their voices rising in a frenzy that sent ripples of ice down her spine. What did the journal say? She murmured to herself, recalling fragmented sentences. She needed to appease them somehow, to unlock whatever binding kept them here. One soul needed for vengeance. A sudden thought pierced through the chaos. Were they searching for a vessel? For someone to take on their pain, to complete the cycle of suffering? The weight of that revelation pressed heavily on her mind, filling her with dread. "There's always a price." The words hung in the air, settling like dust on her conscience. If she intervened, what would be sacrificed? What of her own soul? But just as she released a shuddering breath, she felt a hand brush against her leg. The coldness spread, enveloping her. It was unmistakable, they were trying to pull her back in. "No!" she screamed, fighting with every ounce of will to escape their grip. In that chaotic moment, the flickering light grew brighter, almost blinding. Instinctively, she lunged toward it, fueled by desperation. But just as she crossed the threshold of that sacred light, a voice, smooth and deep, echoed louder than the rest. "You think you can save him? You cannot save what was never yours to keep." The moment she crossed, there was silence. Deadly silence. Sarah's heart hammered as darkness swallowed her whole. Every cell in her body screamed, frozen by cold dread. What had she just done? Swallowed by shadows, she felt their presence shift, knowing she hadn't escaped. She merely traded one prison for another. Ethan's name tore from her lips, a desperate cry that reverberated through a void that felt all too familiar. Ethan. But what awaited her in this place between realities? She could feel the weight of the souls hanging over her, their sorrow palpable. The shadows beckoned, drawing her deeper into their tale, while the light dimmed, fading like a whisper in the storm. The specters hovered around her, their faces emerging from the visions of darkness. "Join us, or face the truth," they spoke, melded into one. What is your cost tonight? Would she dare to find out? Would she make the ultimate sacrifice for love? As the darkness closed in and the light flickered out, Sarah steeled herself for the unknown. She had ventured too far, retreat was no longer an option. How much darkness would she bear to unearth the truth of Ethan's fate? And as the shadows loomed closer, a chilling thought emerged. What if Ethan was not as lost as she believed? What if, in the hunt for salvation, she discovered the price of her own soul? Sarah's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like a drum echoing in the dead air. The voices pressed in around her, swirling like a tempest of despair, their anguish growing ever more urgent. "Join us!" they cried, their spectral forms flickering and blurring, almost as if they couldn't decide whether they wanted to materialize or dissolve into the void. "Where are you, Ethan?" she whispered, feeling the words slip from her tongue into the thick, suffocating silence. Each syllable felt heavy, weighed down by the sorrow of those who lingered here, trapped in this nightmare with her. The shadows twisted, shifting at the edges of her vision. She couldn't see them clearly, but she could feel them, an icy chill that seeped into her bones, whispering secrets of pain and despair. "Bring them back," a voice hissed, raw and cracked, as though it belonged to someone who had long abandoned hope. "Then you may find what you seek." An overwhelming wave of dread crashed over her, and she staggered backward, her breath coming in sharp gasps. What were they asking of her, exactly? The locket around her neck pulsed ominously, its warmth a stark contrast to the frigid air surrounding her. What price would it demand? Suddenly, the ground beneath her shifted, a palpable anxiety rippling through the darkness. She crouched, trying to steady herself, but panic surged inside her. "No!" she screamed, fighting against the tug of unseen hands pulling her toward the darkness. She couldn't let them take her, she wouldn't be another lost soul, but the voices trailed a haunting melody, promising release from her anguish. The lives must be repaid, blood calls for blood, a rush of bile burned in her throat. They wanted more than just her life, they wanted her to bear their suffering. Ethan, she choked out again, each cry ripping at her insides, and with each echo, the shadows shuddered as if responding to her desperation. If I do this, will he come back? Unravel the truth, the chorus sang, their chilling melodies richer with anticipation. Shed the pretense of your love, sacrifice your heart. A figure broke free from the shadows, impossibly tall and draped in darkness, bearing an ethereal pallor. Eyes, sunken yet burning bright, locked onto Sarah. You must decide, child. What are you willing to lose? She felt their gaze, a piercing heat that snaked through her skin and gripped her heart like a vice. Her pulse quickened. I'll do whatever it takes, she said, though the weight of her words bore down on her like a stone. As she spoke, the shadows applauded, a cacophony of trembling, ghostly wails rising in crescendo. Embrace the darkness. Accept your fate. Their excitement was palpable as they circled her, shadows drawing tighter. In that moment, she understood that the voices weren't just begging, they were offering her something twisted. A chance to entwine their fates, to bind her life to theirs through an unholy pact. Choose wisely, the tall figure whispered, its voice thick with malevolence. You can attempt to save him, but will you lose yourself instead? The darkness swelled at her feet, tendrils snaking around her ankles while she fought against them, closing her eyes against the impending decision. Visions of Ethan flashed through her mind, his laughter, his warmth, his promise of a future that seemed impossibly distant now. Ethan! She cried out again, feeling the last shreds of her resolve fraying. Desperation clawed at her gut like wild animals fighting to escape a trap. But what if the truth she sought was more horrific than the shadows? What if Ethan was already consumed by the darkness? With a choking sob, Sarah took a step forward, drawn inexorably toward the abyss. I'll do it! She shouted, even as her heart threatened to fracture beneath the weight of her choice. What must I sacrifice? But before she could comprehend the enormity of her words, the shadows surged, enveloping her in their cold embrace. Would she be the vessel to carry their pain? In the heart of darkness, Sarah knew she had crossed a threshold, one that led to an unknown horror. As the spectral chill tightened around her, she heard it again, the whisper of the figure gliding just beyond her reach, your loved ones are not as they seem. The truth lies behind the mask, and then, silence. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find Ethan? Or would she only discover more terror waiting to consume her whole? The darkness closed in like a shroud, wrapping her in its icy grip. Sarah felt the weight of the shadows pressing upon her, compressing the air until each breath felt like a laborious effort. Her mind raced, a tumult of fears and questions that clawed at her sanity. Had she truly just offered herself up to these wretched voices? In a heartbeat, the world shifted. The murky figures around her pulsed and vibrated, becoming more defined. They were no longer mere wisps but tormented souls, faces twisted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. Each one bore the mark of suffering, their expressions a mirror of her own despair. Do you see them? A voice asked, a jagged whisper that cut through the murmur of the crowd. It was the tall figure, its presence growing solid and threatening. These are the souls lost to vengeance. They cannot rest until the blood debt is paid. Blood debt? She echoed, her voice trembling as reality began to sink in. The hairs on her neck stood on end, every instinct screaming for her to turn and run. They traded their lives for the chance to bind another to their fate. They must consume more sacrifices to find peace, the figure explained, sounding almost taunting. Its eyes blazed with a fire that flickered dangerously. Consider carefully, child. Are you prepared to relinquish your own life, your very essence? Or will you strive to save others only to lose yourself in the process? Sarah shook her head, nausea swirling in her stomach. No, please. I need to find Ethan. He's out there, I know it. The shadows stirred, swirling rapidly, and the souls leaned in closer, faces etched in haggard urgency. Ethan, Ethan, they weaved through the heavy air, sounding more like a death knell than a name. Do you even know who he is anymore? The truth is buried beneath layers of affection. Face what you've evaded. The cold disquiet began to gnaw at her, and doubt seeped through her veins. What if the man she had loved held secrets even darker than these tortured spirits? What if she hadn't known him at all? Do you want to see? The voice of the tall figure was now becoming seductive, luring her deeper into the trap. One glimpse of the truth, and you can decide. But beware, child. Some truths are more dangerous than lies. Before she could respond, the shadows thrashed violently, pulling her deeper into the abyss. A profound cold engulfed her, followed by a blinding flash of light. Sarah stumbled forward, suddenly alone in a grim, desolate landscape. The air was thick with despair, the ground barren and cracked as if the very earth was mourning. In the distance, she caught sight of a figure the shape of a man, lost amidst the chaos. Ethan! She screamed, hope igniting within her even against the overwhelming dread. As she rushed towards him, the earth trembled, and whispers enveloped her, voices intermingled in panic. You cannot return. They cried, the price must be paid. Sarah fell to her knees, grappling with the enormity of what she had stepped into. Each desperate breath felt like a countdown, the ticking clock echoing the ultimatum pressing on her. She could feel a dark force rising, smothering her will, and yet at the heart of it all, she still wanted to believe. Ethan turned, and for a moment, the resemblance was unmistakable, yet shadows clung to him, distorting his features. Help me, Sarah. He called, but there was a chilling distance in his eyes that set her heart racing. Was it him? Had he been consumed by the darkness too? Stay back! She yelled, fear seeping into her bones as she now faced the reality of her choice. What was she truly willing to sacrifice? And as the shadows pressed closer, a haunting realization dawned, the truth that lay ahead could change everything or destroy her completely. What awaited her in the realm of the lost? Would she find the man she sought or a monster unrecognizable? The ground beneath Sarah felt alive, pulsating with a rhythm that matched the thumping of her heart. She tried to stand, but the weight of the shadows pinned her down like a thick, oppressive fog. Ethan's figure became clearer, yet the terror in his eyes only seemed to deepen the darkness around them. Ethan, she cried once more, pushing through the choking despair. Her voice ricocheted through the empty space, swallowed whole by the gloom. With each step she took, the whispers grew louder, overlapping and frantic, telling tales of betrayal and revenge. You cannot help him. Save yourself. No. Sarah screamed, shaking her head violently. I want to abandon him. The very air shimmered with tension, the heat of desperation clawing at her throat. She was stepping onto a battlefield of souls, each one a prisoner of their own misery, and she was caught in the middle. Help me, Sarah. Ethan's voice again broke through the chaos, this time more urgent, more desperate. But he was not the same man. A shadow flickered in his eyes, a flicker that reminded her of the tortured faces haunting her recent vision. As she struggled to move closer, the ground cracked open, revealing a chasm that seemed eager to swallow her whole. Tendrils of shadow lashed out from the abyss, wrapping around her ankles. Panic surged through her, visceral and real. Tell me the truth. She shouted, forcing herself to hold Ethan's gaze. But the darkness around him writhed, distorting his features, and for a moment, she was unsure if the figure before her was the man she loved or a cruel figment conjured by the cursed realm. Sarah, his voice caught in his throat, a low growl that sent chills dancing down her spine. I can't hold it back much longer. Suddenly, the ground rumbled violently, and the souls of the damned surged, a wave of spectral anguish lashing out at her. The price must be paid. They screamed, voices merging into a tornado of despair. Sarah's heart raced as she felt the shadows tightening their grip, their icy tendrils whispering dark secrets she never wanted to hear. What do you want from me? She gasped, desperate for answers. Sacrifice. They chorused, every word a dagger piercing her reality. You must decide who lives and who dies. What do you want, child? Redemption or damnation? Tears streaked down her cheeks, the weight of their words crashing around her as if to bury her. Ethan, please, tell me you're still in there. Desperation fueled her resolve, and she pushed through the darkness around her, reaching for the flicker of light in the depths of his eyes. I'm suffocating, Sarah. He cried, the shadows clawing at him as he receded further into the void. I can't stop them. You must choose. The air thickened, each second a lifetime teetering on the brink of an impossibility. The haunting figures pressed in closer, their wails harmonizing into a spine-chilling lullaby of despair. Amidst the chaos, Sarah realized the truth sunk deep within her mind. She, too, could become one of them. In a burst of courage, she lunged forward, hands outstretched, trying to grasp what was left of Ethan. I will not let you go. But as she touched the shadow, a jolt of energy surged through her, igniting pain and fear that felt both foreign and familiar. Ethan's eyes turned molten, a fury ignited behind them that crashed like thunder, drowning out her determination. With each flicker of his once familiar face, horror twisted her gut. The shadows snickered. You made your choice, they taunted, urging her to see the horror in its entirety. From far beyond the mortal's realm, a monstrous laugh echoed, reverberating through her bones. In that moment of dread, she understood, the truth would not be a savior. It could annihilate everything she held dear. It wasn't just Ethan in danger, no, something more sinister had been awakened. Then, as if the very ground was responding to her fear, a rumble shook beneath them. The earth split wider, an invitation to the depths of hell, ready to consume all she held dear. No. She staggered backward, the terrifying thought spiraling within her. Fates were intertwined, and any choice she made would echo through eternity. What awaited Sarah in this treacherous descent? Would she be able to uncover the truth and save Angela, or would the shadows pull her into their eternal grasp? The chasm yawned wide, an insatiable void ready to engulf Sarah and take her into the abyss. Shadows writhed into serpentine forms, their whispers sharp and mocking, echoing the fears deep-seated in her heart. Every breath she took felt like a treasure and a betrayal. I won't let it take us. She shouted, defiance piercing through her panic. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah dropped to her knees, the ground cold and slick beneath her palms, and pulled at the tendrils gripping her. The shadows hissed, their voices a terrifying mix of delight and fury. You think you can resist? The dead bind you now. Your fate dances on the edge of despair. Ethan. She cried again, her voice a lifeline against the chaos. As if on cue, the air thickened with a coldness that seeped into her bones. Ethan's image twitched beneath the quaking shadows, his face flickering like a faulty light bulb. You can save me, but it demands a cost. Say it. His words spilled out amidst the chaos, flowing into her like venom. Sarah gritted her teeth, heart hammering in her chest. The initial defiance grew heavy with dread as the darkness pressed on her senses. What would be the price? Who would it take? Her heart screamed in fear. Enough. She growled, thrusting her hands against the swirling void. I am done. Show me the truth. The shadows shrieked in protest, a cacophony of tortured souls suddenly silencing in anticipation. In that eerie quietude, images began to unfold in front of her, shrouded in mist. Faces contorted by anguish stared back, lost souls chained by their failures, echoes of betrayal she didn't recognize but felt all the same. Each one screamed a name she knew: Angela. Sarah, don't. Ethan's eyes widened in a mixture of horror and desperation. The shadows coiled tighter as her breath hitched. You mustn't look away, there's more at stake. But it was too late. The visions twisted and merged into a violent storm around her. Angela's face appeared, eyes wide with fear, framed by darkness just like Ethan's. Help us. Don't let them take me. Panic gnawed at Sarah, and the realization hit her like a brick. This was indeed a choice. In front of her loomed the burden: save one, and lose another. Clenching her fists, she fought against the realization that seeped into her heart. Was she capable of determining who deserved life, and who would fade into the void? Choose now. The shadows hissed, their voices scraping against her soul, full of malicious glee. Sacrifice must be made. A heart for a heart. Ethan's cry pierced through all the noise, an echo of anguish laden with affection. Save our love. The shadows writhed with fury. It was a declaration that twisted reality. Hope flickered, but beneath it lay the terror of realization love could not shield those bound to the darkness entirely. Frustration bubbled in Sarah's throat as she wrestled with her options. Why? Why must it be this way? Her voice trembled, torn between the acute pain of loyalty and the wrenching dread of failure. If she surrendered to the shadows, what redemption could possibly come after? Just then, as if reading her turmoil, a monstrous roar erupted from the depths, splitting the ground further still. Tendrils lunged at her once again, pulling her closer to the chasm's edge. Do you feel it, the weight of your choice? They taunted, relentless and confident, gritting her teeth. Sarah flung herself toward Ethan's tormented face amidst the chaos. I want to choose. Not like this. But it wasn't up to her. Before she could react, the shadows coiled tighter, preparing to drag her into the churning maw. In an instant, the world shifted, and Sarah felt her very soul being weighed as the ground lurched beneath her. The darkness laughed, an echo of cruel joy. Your reckoning comes soon. In that terrifying moment, clarity sparked within Sarah. This was not just a battle for Ethan, it was also a battle for Angela's life. With her heartbeat matching the chaos around her, she finally understood the cost might be greater than she'd ever anticipated. Would she find a way to save her sister without losing Ethan? Or would the looming void itself choose for her, leaving nothing but echoes in the darkness? The storm raged around Sarah, shadows swirling like dark vipers. The ground threatened to split open, inviting her into the abyss. Each heartbeat echoed the weight of choice, reminding her of what she risked losing. In that moment of chaos, she felt a flicker of hope intertwined with desperation. She had no other options. If the cost was one life to save another, then she needed to find a way to break the cycle. Stop! She cried, I want to let you control me. The darkness pulsed, as if reflecting her defiance. She could feel the locket heavy against her chest, a constant reminder of the power that had drawn her into this nightmare. Its energy resonated within her, urging her to harness it, to stand tall in the face of despair. Ethan, Angela. She called out, her voice splitting the chaos, no one deserves to suffer like this. The shadows shrieked and writhed, but in their fury, the figures began morphing, faces surfacing through the tumult, faces she recognized. There was Angela, eyes pleading, and Ethan, his features twisted in anguish yet urging her forward. Make your choice. The figures chorused, echoing the pulse of her own heart. Sarah clenched her fists, fury mixing with the remnants of her love for them both. You're so much more than this. She shouted. You can't let the curse consume you. Suddenly, time froze. A hush rippled through the storm of shadows, a moment of clarity unveiled amidst the tempest. She understood, the souls who surrounded her craved acknowledgement, recognition of their pain, but they had twisted it into vicious cycles of vengeance. I will not condemn anyone. Sarah yelled into the silence. You want a sacrifice? Here's my heart, my love, but not for pain. For release. As she spoke, she willed the energy of the locket to rise within her, to illuminate the darkness that sought to consume. The air crackled, and a blinding light exploded from the locket, harsh and beautiful. The shadows reared back, their mocking whispers replaced by agonized howls. Brightness surged forth, forcing a chasm in the darkness, revealing haunting figures that flitted away, seeming to let out breath after breath they didn't know they were holding. Let them go. Sarah demanded. Let them be free. And with that, A wave of light surged into the very heart of the specters, illuminating their faces twisted in torment. Faces once known to the town breathed, for the first time, an air of peace. The ground trembled, a violent surge pulling at her ankles as the ethereal light washed over her, embodying everything she loved. It stitched hope into the fabric of despair, pouring bravery into her veins and intertwining her essence with Ethan and Angela. "Find your peace," she called, letting every ounce of love flow through her. "You are more than your pain. Together, we can rise." And suddenly, the air was filled with music, sweet and ethereal. The overlapping whispers transformed into harmonies blessing her. She was not alone. In that moment, the shadows slithered back, retreating into the void, leaving behind a soft glow that illuminated the path ahead. The sundered land healed, bound by the love she had unlocked, the fierce, unyielding love of a mother and sister. The darkness had released its bonds. "Sarah!" Ethan's voice rang out, cutting through her fog of uncertainty. His form began to stabilize, emerging from the shadows with a grace that turned the moment electric. "You did it." He stepped toward her, the fear in his eyes vanishing, replaced by warmth and remembrance. Angela followed closely, the fear that had marred her face now replaced by relief and gratitude. "I was lost but you brought me back," Ethan whispered, and all the pain that had throbbed in her heart melted away into their shared embrace. The three stood united, a family threaded together by compassion, forever changed but no longer prisoners of the curse. The locket's glow pulsated gently at her throat, a reminder of what they had conquered together. As they stepped into the light, the dawn broke over Willow Creek, its soft glow promising renewal and rebirth. The town would heal. The spirits would fade with the rising sun, each one released from their pain, free to journey on. "Let us go home," Sarah said, voice quivering but confident. With Ethan's hand grasped tightly in one, and Angela's in the other, they turned away from the shadows, finally facing a future filled with possibilities, one where darkness had no reign. As they took their first steps forward together, Sarah felt hope blooming in her chest, a true love that had broken the chains forever. They were home now, and nothing could take that away. Now, friends, this is your call to action. You need to subscribe now to stay updated on more exclusive stories like this. Smash that like button now to keep our momentum going and feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and reactions. What do you think of the ending? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference, and I can't thank you enough.